Welcome back to the Darkest Theory podcast. I'm Subtle alongside ScrapBrain. What's going
Yo,
on?
what's going on?
So we're talking about the combination, really, of the second round of updates to the Singularity, to Hux, as I've tended to call them, as well as the live debut. We've only been maybe 12 hours removed now when we're recording this from the anniversary event, for the 7th anniversary event, introducing some temporary unique gameplay mechanics in addition to the offerings and cosmetics that traditionally come with the anniversary. But we're going to kind of start out with having finally kind of tested in live matches how it feels to play both as and against the Singularity. So we've had some adjustments that we covered in last episode that were kind of teased a little bit going into it. The big one, right, was the reduction of the number of boxes from 5 to 4. That was a pretty efficient way for them to cut down on the availability of the EMPs, as well as another 10-second increase. We went from 80 to 90, now we went from 90 to 100 in terms of the passive recharge rate for the boxes as well. And then they also tweaked how EMPs are deployed. So it takes half a second longer, up from 2 seconds to 2.5, to fully charge the EMP before you detonate, as well as now survivors suffer from a hindered effect, a 10% hindered effect, while charging and holding the EMP. So you can't just like have it charged ready to pop while you're in chase. You are slowed down in a meaningful way, so you can still use it to maybe try and follow a teammate that you know is nearby to cleanse them, and obviously just using it to pop instantly, maybe to hit one of the biopods, stuff like that. But to just hold it in chase is no longer an option. As well as they reduced the amount of time that the biopods get disabled when they're hit by the EMP. Used to be that the biopods would get knocked out for 60 seconds. Now they're only knocked out for 45 before they're usable again. Scrap, if you want to kind of start, what are your thoughts now that we've had just a couple of days to play against the Singularity with those changes?
Yeah, I've played against it a few times now, and I haven't played as it, but I'll speak to the experience that I do have. The changes feel I guarantee that people who play the Singularity are happy about these changes. It feels a bit much. I've talked on previous episodes ideas that I have as far as ways they could have gone about it. The combination of all of these changes together just feels not oppressive, not overbearing, but it is definitely harder. I mean, just EMPs can still take out multiple biopods at the same time, and the survivors that are slipstream, you can break the biopods off of them. However, the fact that getting an EMP takes 90 seconds now, and a disabled biopod is only 45 seconds, means that you can disable a biopod, or like a biopod can come back 2 times for every one EMP that you use, and it seems pretty strong. I've played against Singularity now a few times on the game in particular, and even though, and this would apply to Midwich as well, to a lesser extent like RPD, but even though it's a multi-floor level and you can use the EMP to get biopods on multiple levels, it is so congested in terms of horizontal distance that it feels pretty rough to be able to get much progress. It's probably those kind of maps are probably like pretty good for Singularity as opposed to the more traditionally flat out maps. There are kind of some trade-offs though. I think probably like Larry's is his worst map by far. With Midwich and stuff like that, you have classrooms and line of sight blockers, but I don't know. It there's just so many sneaky ways that the Singularity can kind of get sight on people, and the fact that you have all of these either buffs for Singularity or debuffs for the survivors going against the Singularity is just like pretty rough all combined. It feels similar to me to when they like decreased the amount of haste effect you get after getting hit by a killer, and faster kick time and faster pallet break time, and this and that and the other all at the same time, maybe like a year ago. And it does feel like a lot. He feels a lot stronger.
I will say that in general, I agree with most of what you said. Midwich being like the one outlier where it's just like the rooms are like so close where it does feel similar to how like Larry's is. I would say that Midwich feels like pretty bad because the rooms are so like closed in, especially with the gens, and there's usually not like multiple angles because there's kind of like the loops in the middle that have those like sort of grates that are like partially see-through that go all the way to the ceiling, and so you can't really like get multiple angles within the same room. Like the big way to guard, like if you're trying to guard a specific generator to prevent an EMP from just like completely covering a whole gen, is like you got to put them in relatively far away places. That's why like generally on like outdoor maps you can put like one up all like in a tree or something, and then one more in like a traditional like closer spot, so that way one EMP can't like take out all of your eyes that are guarding one particular generator. But like Midwich doesn't really feel like that's the case outside of like the courtyard area, right? It's like the exception, but that's not
Yeah,
even like a guarantee.
that's my thought mainly, because like with the game, you have that main room and there's always a generator, sometimes two generators, on very rare occasions three, but like in particular I see like two a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just spread out the biopods in the main room, and it's impossible to take
Yeah,
out all of them, and it gives the Singularity a lot of leeway on getting slipstreams on
yeah,
people.
the game feels really good from like my experiences playing, just because like especially the upstairs rooms have like such high walls before you hit the ceiling, so you can like put them up in a corner, in the far corner away from where the gen is, as well as like one close to like make it harder. Plus like the doorways are wider, so sometimes like an EMP that's in main room, if it's like not up against like the ceiling but can partially see through like a doorway, as well as one in the room with it, like the rooms are more open as opposed to like Midwich and Larry's, like you were saying, which are a lot more congested and I feel like are harder to play. But on most maps he definitely feels a lot like more improved. Like there, he is like fairly map dependent, depending on I feel like I haven't really played on like Badham, but I have to imagine that it's a similar case, like dealing with gens that are like, I don't know how you deal with like the 2-story generator, the solo generator that's just like in that tiny little room, or like downstairs in preschool really doesn't feel like there's like a lot of like ways,
something like that
basement.
Something like that 2-story gen in particular is probably just one of those ones where
You just
you
can't.
have to sacrifice it.
Yeah, like you can put one there just to like check if someone's on there, but you pretty like, as long as they're grabbing an EMP and using it, like that is never going to reliably tag someone. It's literally just for the info that you could probably either like infer on your own or use another like information perk to get that sort of knowledge. So but like in general, I would say like it feels a lot better. The recharge on the biopods themselves is kind of nice, where it's like if you're like if someone knocks one out but you don't worry about going back to the generator and you just sort of commit to a chase, by the time you like finish up the chase, ideally getting the down and getting the hook, like that 45-second window is now back, so you can kind of like immediately go and check the gen from when you had been in the, or initially seen it maybe being knocked out when you were in chase, things like that. The hinder also, like it feels like it's forcing, it's the hinder thing is like good, but also feels kind of bad in that it feels like it makes it only like a super viable way where to cleanse in chase if a teammate does it for you. So then it's kind of reintroducing that like disparity between survive with friends versus solo queue, which I think is like always like a wrong step. I get why they did it, but the like reduced number of boxes, and like in addition to like the previous change where you can't see an EMP while you're like holding one already, which is like another good change, but like that rewards team play versus like trying to fend for yourself while solo, and it's like, again, that's just increasing the disparity in how it feels playing against like, and I feel like I can notice that, like noticing when a team is like very clearly organized and has teammates coming in and cleansing one another with EMPs, as opposed to just sort of splitting up and stuff, which is like, splitting up against him is a decent strategy, so that way the infection doesn't spread and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I feel like there could be tweaks to make him feel a little bit nicer for both sides, but it's definitely like, I feel like the quick address was like he was feeling too weak on average, so we needed to give him a little bit of a buff. But I feel like tweaks could make him feel better still for both sides. Like I don't think he's in a a perfect spot from the killer perspective, but and like I said, I think for solo queue, like it doesn't feel like the adjustments really do that any favors either.
Yeah, prior to this change, it felt miserable to play as him still. We've addressed it multiple times. The EMPs were still too strong, even after the first round of changes that they made. I just think that this was a little too much. In particular, I'm starting to get worried again of with the downtime being reduced from 60 to 45 seconds, that this can lead to more 3-gen style gameplays where, you know, for example, with the game, I know that I've been talking about that map with him multiple times, but I've run across him on that map multiple times at this point. Being able to hold 2 gens in main and then one other one where you can have biopod set up all across main and they can't disable all of them, allows you to slipstream to survivors and then go into the overclock mode. And the kind of the balancing point for the game is how strong all of the pallets are and how many there are. The overclock mechanic does a lot to nullify that. Whether you're breaking it automatically from getting stunned and getting knocked out of overclock, or whether you're just breaking it incredibly fast. And that's something that I'm concerned about, but absolutely, unquestioningly, they needed to do something to make him feel better for the killer's perspective from what it was before that. I feel like it's a little too much.
But yeah,
I feel like instead of doing all of these changes, they could have done like 4 of the 5 and it would have been fine.
Yeah, I agree. They could have ramped it up like the way they did with the previous update, where they were like more gradually trying to ramp up his like strength, and they felt like they made like a larger leap this time from like where they went from PTB to live. So but again, I don't think he's like in any sort of like game breaking state, so I think it's like okay for the most part, and we'll see if they do further adjustments down the road. But
it's certainly not to the point of like, what Nurse used to be, or like Alchemist Ring, Adrenaline Vial, Blight, or anything like that.
So. Yeah, so we're but the main sort of like update and new content is the anniversary. So they once again are going with the Twisted Masquerade theme, which is what they did last year, releasing a bunch of cosmetics and masks and stuff for a bunch of survivors and killers, along with some charms and an event tome as well, which we'll get to in a little bit with some of the challenges and whatnot. But the main differentiating point is that this year, getting one of the envelopes, one of the invitations for the from the in-game, these like sort of totem things, these like pedestals essentially. You can sort of grab those, and then you're glowing to let you know that you obtained one. But now you get tokens that you can spend as both survivor and killer over the course of the match. So the survivor gains 2 abilities. One is to make what they're calling a party palette, which is kind of distinguished from normal palettes in that it's got like an orange sort of splatter on the ground, as well as some different decorative stuff on the palette.
It's straight out of Splatoon.
Yeah, a little bit. And but the thing that makes it different than normal palette is that you can't if throwing the palette instantly breaks it. So the only value from those pallets is to get a stun, which is obviously meaningful, but you have to get a stun to get any sort of value because it immediately disintegrates upon being thrown. They do stay up indefinitely, though, so there can be some pretty good value, as we'll talk about in a little while. As well as for a survivor, you get the ability, if you want to block the window with like an entity blocker, but it's blocking it for the killer, not for the survivor, as in the case of when you're in chase or something like that. Once you vault 3 times, there's the default blocker. This prevents a killer from essentially like vaulting behind you. So it depends on like what window you're at in terms of like how valuable that is and how easy it is for the killer to just sort of walk around. But it's a block for 4 seconds, so it's not crazy long, where it's usually like only one loop around. Like if the killer goes around, it's probably going to be unblocked by the time you get back to it for them. And the killer, on the other hand, gets the ability to instant break a wall or pallet and spend a charge that way. A pallet being that it has to be a thrown pallet. They can't break a pallet before it's been used. And they also have the ability to inflict the exposed status effect for 10 seconds on a survivor once they've reached at least tier 1 of Bloodlust. They can choose to deploy that. So that's the two on the killer side. The sort of universal thing is that it takes 20 seconds of being in chase after you've attained that initial invitation to recharge a token. It holds over, so it doesn't have to be 20 consecutive seconds or anything. And you also are hit with a 15-second cooldown. That's sort of the little window with the invitation gets like covered in orange essentially, and it depletes. So that's a 15-second cooldown. So if you have 2 tokens stored up, you can't just like use them back to back or anything like that. So to kind of prevent that from being too oppressive. We've played for a few hours now on the anniversary update. What are your thoughts playing? I guess mostly from Survivor.
Yeah, I haven't played any killer so far, but I've played quite a bit of Survivor. I will start with the killer side though. I have not. In our matches, there have been people that have used the exposed during a chase with Bloodlust. I think that's only happened like one time. It's an incredibly strong effect, but you do have to reach Bloodlust in order to do that, and there's going to be a lot of times where it's just going to be better to get the initial hit for the pressure up front as opposed to, kind of timing it out. There will for sure be times where that won't be the case and it's better to get the insta down, but it hasn't happened that often. And then with the pallet break, that's the one that I've seen the most, pallet or wall break. I think that's not the stronger effect, but the more consistent effect. It is, I think, pretty solid. We were talking before last week that these effects are either going to be like really fun or really obnoxious and nowhere in between. And somehow I kind of feel like it's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
It feels strong, but it doesn't feel wildly oppressive one way or another. On the Survivor side, I have done the entity blocker on the window a few times. Being able to block a window that is either a god window or a window when the killer is running bamboozle and therefore can't proc their bamboozle is very strong. Blocking a god window just means that you win the chase flat out. If they wait there for 4 seconds for it to unblock and then go, you're out of there. And if you are denying them of a bamboozle even one time, that can make the entire difference between a won chase and a lost one. What I think is I've had way more fun with is the party palette. So I've been on a mission where I will drop party pallets all across the map just as I get them. You have to be in chase in order to do either of these things, so I can't just do it willy-nilly. But when I have the tokens and I'm in chase, I'll drop party pallets, and then I've been running the Power Struggle Flip-Flop Tenacity Unbreakable build, and you can, in fact, and I have, Power Struggled people with the party pallets, and it is so fun. What I haven't done, I've set them up and then Power Struggled them. What I want to do is be in chase with somebody with a token, drop a party pallet, immediately go down because they kill me, and then like they pick me up and I Power Struggle them with that pallet that I just dropped right before going down. That would be hype. But it is cool that you can do that. It's a lot of fun. We had a really fun match earlier on RPD where myself and one of our other party members, we had 2 pallets at the front desk and we just kept looping it. And because you regain the tokens every 20 seconds while in chase, we would just throw it to stun the killer and then keep looping and place another pallet down. And it was a lot of fun, and the killer was a good sport about it. But that's been really fun. An additional thing that has come up is with the party pallets, you can use them to kill the zombies for Nemesis, and you're not losing a permanent resource on the map for it. So
Nemesis in particular, those are like as like from a kill versus specific killer standpoint, I guess like gets a little bit screwed over in that regard. But it's a okay trade-off, I would say. But
You know what I just thought of? I'm guessing that this won't work in favor of the killer. But if a survivor places a party pallet and it's a fake pallet Freddy, I'm guessing that the Freddy won't be able to place a pallet where a party pallet already is.
right, I would think so.
Yeah, that would only make sense.
And I would think you wouldn't be able to place a party pallet if a fake pallet's there.
That's what. Well, here's the thing. What if the Freddy places a pallet and an awake survivor places a party pallet at the same one?
I guess it would. Yeah, I don't know. I would think that it just like wouldn't allow you to place it there. Like it wouldn't.
Yeah, whoever has it first.
Yeah, I would think that like since the game knows that it's there, you can't see it as the awake survivor. But I would think you just don't get the like. It puts like a blue aura for people who haven't experienced it before. Like as if you were placing like a fake pallet as Freddy, where it kind of just like shows where you're gonna put it. Same with like the entity blocker, it kind of highlights the window in like a blue.
So they really nerfed pallet Freddy with this event, because now if there's an area that I know that I can place a party pallet at and it's not letting me, then I know it's a pallet Freddy.
Yeah, not wrong. But good luck finding a pallet Freddy. They're pretty rare, but yeah, I would agree. We did kind of preface the event last episode saying like they're probably going to be like too over centralizing in terms of like how strong they are, or they're just gonna not be impactful enough that we're just gonna be like whatever. They're kind of just like throw-ins, but they managed to make them like interesting but also not like horribly oppressive. I think the party palette feels the nicest. Like that's what I was kind of worried about. It's just like if you're just making like a bunch of extra pallets, that seems ridiculous. Like even with
the fact that they go away, the fact that they go away makes it feel much more reasonable.
It weirdly also, like, knowing that the killer is aware, like if the killer is aware that that throwing the pallet insta breaks it, they tend to like respect it more, since they know that like the only value is of getting the stun in. If they can bait the throw, then it goes away and then they can just immediately get the hit. So there is like, it kind of adds like a weird different, like it kind of skews the balance of like how the killer evaluates whether a survivor is going to throw or greet a pallet, because they know that the only value is from throwing it. But at the same time, it almost feels like you shouldn't respect it even more because the survivor knows that. So it changes the equation a little bit, which I think keeps that mind game a bit interesting. And like I was worried about like the summoning extra pallets, because I was like, yeah, the exposed thing can be really strong, but if there's just a bunch of extra pallets, you can easily, assuming as it is that the exposed is only for a temporary amount of time, it's like you get hit with exposed, oh okay, summon a pallet, and you buy enough time to get away. But the fact that you have to get the stun makes it a little bit tougher, and really like doesn't do anything if you have enduring, which is that is the other effect. I was forgetting that the killer does have an additional effect. I thought I was missing one, that where they can give themselves temporary enduring from a pallet stun where they when you're in chase. So there is like a third one. I was trying to remember all of them, and that one slipped my mind. But yeah, so that kind of like counters the party pallets essentially, because it's like if they set up the enduring to get hit by a party pallet, they're just going to probably win that exchange.
And the fact that the pallet breaks immediately means that if you have enduring or the enduring effect, then you're immediately getting a hit.
Yeah, it's like having enduring Spirit Fury, right? You're just the pallet's just breaking. So, but you know, again, it doesn't feel like it creates some like unique sort of situations and lets you do some more power struggle stuff. And I'm sure there's other things that we'll kind of come up with. I wouldn't be surprised if like the what's it called? I'm trying to remember the perk.
Beast of Prey.
No. Smash hit, like smash hit potentially, like things like that. Like would be
parental
cool.
Guidance.
Parental guidance, yeah, like things that require more pallet stuns. Like you might be able to get more easily proc that. Like one of the big things, right, is like greeting a bunch of pallets, but like these pallets you can bring back, so it might lean you to throw it a little bit more and potentially get more value. So that kind of stuff is
Beast
neat.
Of Prey
I
for
think
the exposed.
Yeah, and I would think also that I would think if you were to do like hubris could like shine a little bit more in this event, where you're basically giving yourself the enduring effect into a party palette and then just getting the insta down. Like I wouldn't be surprised if people start figuring out perks that sort of benefit from these interactions a little bit
Well,
more.
and if you just do hubris and enduring, then you're freed up to keep your invitation tokens for the auto break of the pallets or the walls. And just to be clear, with the auto break of the pallets and the walls, it works similarly to Night, where it just breaks and you're free to move on with your character however you want. You don't have to do any kind of animation or anything like that. You just have to have it in your view and hit the button to proc it, and then it'll break.
Yeah, the bigger guard, not jailer, not assassin. I'm forgetting the Carnifex is it's similar to that effect because it's pretty instant rather than the other guards that take like a few more swings. So, yeah, I think we were pretty happy with how the actual in game mechanics felt. That we were, like I said, a little bit apprehensive about it, but it's cool, and they
struck a
well.
very surprising balance of making it interesting but not overpowered. I think the fact that you have to be in Bloodlust for the expose, and the fact that the entity blocker is only for 4 seconds, so it's not very long, and that the pallets break after being thrown, I think that was like really good design choice.
Yeah, we'll see how we feel like in 2 weeks from now, when we've been hit by exposed or something a bunch of times, or everyone's doing hubris, enduring, and those kind of things. But initial takeaways feel pretty good. Also, sort of more, I guess, sort of out of game stuff, but we'll talk about one of the ones that does affect your in game play is the cosmetics feel fine. I was kind of looking through some of them, and the masks and stuff are cool. There's a few that like jump out, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on the cosmetics and stuff and the options that they sort of provided.
As far as the ones that you get for escaping with invitations, which we didn't mention, some of these cosmetics you get through escaping as survivor with invitations, or just finishing a match as killer, or unlocking on the event tome, or purchasing from the store. Those are the ways of unlocking these skins. So the ones that you unlock from the invitations, I really like the Blight skin, the Blight mask, quite a bit. I think that's pretty cool. That's probably my favorite one. The Nurse one is pretty good. I don't really care for too many of the Survivor ones. This whole Twisted Masquerade like theme isn't really my speed, but I mean, they don't look bad, and I know that there are people that really like them. I think that my favorite cosmetic from this, though, is actually the Ghost Face bundle that you can get from the store. I think that looks really good. I like the detail that they did on the knife in particular, and I think the kind of light gold coloring that they did for the mask is pretty cool too.
Yeah, I think that they're pretty good. I think there was more of the like unlockable ones from the invitations that I liked from last year's compared to the ones that they gave this year. Like I agree, I like the Nurse one. I don't know if I actually saw the Blight one or not. I know I've seen the Knights, which is kind of like a triangle one, which is like kind of an interesting like different shape to have. But
yeah, I've got it pulled up right now. The Knight is definitely, when I first saw that, I thought that it was an artist one.
That's exactly what I thought too. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool.
It's cool.
The new Singularity one is also pretty nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say the new characters having them is always like a good thing, since those characters are obviously gonna be lacking in cosmetics. Singularity, no exception to that. So it'd be cool to have something similar. I think I just prefer the stuff we got last year for Hattie and Dredge. I thought were really well done compared to.
And yeah, the Dredge one in particular was like really, really awesome. One thing to note is that the ones from last year are available in the store.
Mm-hmm.
So if you weren't playing last year or you didn't get them all, you can unlock them right now through the store.
But as we kind of talked about, you do unlock some of them by completing the event tome. So that's something they've done for a few events. I know that they did that for the Halloween event, and as well as last year for the anniversary, and they've done that before. But so there is 2 tracks essentially. So there is a top track that is the community challenges. So basically, you have to highlight and contribute your portion. There's like a maximum amount that you can contribute toward this community-wide goal. Once the community has completed this larger amount, as long as you've done your portion, you can check that note off and go to the next one should it unlock. So if you join the party a little bit late, the first one, as we were sort of noting, we've been like 12 hours in. The first community challenge is, I think, like I saw, like 2/3, 3/4 done. So we're probably, by the time we hit a full 24 hours, I would assume we're going to be on to the next one as a community, which is good because, as we kind of prefaced the event last episode, is that we were like, did they learn their lesson? They set the goals way too high last year, and they had to basically like tone all of the numbers down because there was just no way the community was going to hit them. They just, I guess, didn't really understand how long it takes to do certain things in game. This first one is like skill checks as survivor and gen kicks, yeah, as killer. So pretty easy to farm both of those. And the amount that you can do, I think, is like 30. So you can contribute a fair amount. So we're almost there, and so those seem to be progressing better than.
Just one thing to reiterate, and you mentioned this, but I want to make this clear to people that may have not done this before. Your portion will only be tracked and will only contribute to the community portion if you have that node selected as your current challenge. So you can't do red glyphs, you can't do, hooking your obsession challenges. You have to have these ones selected in order for your own progress to be counted and to contribute to the community's portion.
Yeah, and they won't let you like mooch off the rest of the community. So if you show up like a week from now, if you want to progress along the community track, you will have to go back and do each of those individual challenges and fulfill your
even if the community portion is all done.
Right, even if the community the community total is already complete. And then there's the personal track. So there are some cosmetics that you can get along the way. Pretty standard tome track where it's kind of got like a killer part and a survivor with some ones along the way that you can do for either side. All of them are pretty easy. A lot of them do force you to interact with the new in-game mechanics, which is cool. They force you to, I think one is like a survivor killer hybrid where it's just like use an effect 3 times, and then there's some survivor ones where it's like try out these pallets and then also try blocking the window, and killer has like the similar thing on the other side. So that's nice. They're forcing people to lean in a little bit to them. The first few matches that I had played when I was just playing as killer, I like kind of forgot to like try to find spots to use those things, but they feel like we're just so used to like the basic sort of like gameplay loop of how chases go that like adding these several wrinkles to both sides and extra options is like a little jarring and like easy to forget that they exist. But I'm like, feel like especially Survivor, more just sort of implementing it into the gameplay. The pallets feel a little bit more natural where you're just like, I have a free charge, just throw a pallet there for later, we'll see what happens.
Just real quick, circling back to how they kind of balance this, these effects, the fact that you can only use them on either side when you're in chase is also a big deal for how they balanced it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So like you were saying, the individual challenges seem like pretty easy and straightforward. There is a killer one for breaking the pallets 4 times, and these don't have to be done in like a singular match, but that one does feel. I think I'm getting that right. Now I'm doubting myself.
I'm not sure. I don't know if I got to that part on the killer side.
Hold on. I've got it pulled up.
Yeah, you're good.
So in a chase, activate the invitation to endure any stun 3 times. That seems kind of, in terms of these effects, these challenges, that one seems kind of tough. And then I guess the pallet break is only 1. The last one is one that you have to damage a generator or a drop pallet 6 times, but it is dealing with something else that we want to talk about, which we can just jump to right away.
Sure. Yeah.
They added perk randomizer. So there are 2 challenges, one on survivor and one on killer, where it will assign you random perks that you won't know until you're actually loaded into the game. And then you have to do a challenge. So for the survivor side, you have to heal 2 health states of any survivor. And on the killer side, this is the one that I had in my mind. It's damage a generator or destroy drop pallet 6 times. So that's not hard, I guess. I think I was thinking of the endure the stun 3 times as the tougher one.
Gotcha.
But yeah, these perk randomizers, they added it to the game. I think that's great. There's no shot that they're not going to make this a base part of the game, which I think is great. It's something that people have been using using like external websites for, so it's about fucking time that they add it to the game.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah, I know it's something that like our friend group has used pretty regularly at times just to kind of spice things up. We get sort of into these builds that we like and we'll play those a lot, maybe a couple of different builds or variations of those, but sometimes it's just like I just want to really shake things up, just get some different perks, some fresh stuff in there. I think I enjoy it a little bit more as survivor as opposed to killer, since killer I feel like sometimes perks don't like mesh with powers and stuff as well. But for survivor, it's cool to just try out different things, different combinations. Sometimes you like accidentally walk into like this synergy between perks that you didn't really think of, which is cool. But yeah, it seems like a no-brainer.
Think about it.
Yeah, maybe, but it seems like a no-brainer, right? They put the like question mark little placeholders over all of the perk spots in your loadout. Only when it's enabled. It doesn't like clear your loadout, so if you're worried about that situation, it's really nice. Like some toggleable thing on the loadout screen to just be like randomizer on, randomizer off, and then you're still in control of your items and your offerings and your cosmetics and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it assuming that they implement it the same way as they have with these challenges, moving forward, the only thing that I would like to see is some kind of additional randomization option for your item, your add-ons, and your offering.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like that again is and maybe even like your killer, if they can kind of find a way to do that reasonably. But again, like websites that people use on the regular do all of that stuff, and I think that being able to have that just be a part of the game itself, all of it, to bypass the need for any of that would be great. And maybe you say, only randomize 3 of these perks instead of all 4, or something like that.
Yeah, some more like options that you can control and customize and stuff for yourself, I think would be nice. But some people just want to have different games. I think like that's one of the things about Dead by Daylight that most people can get frustrated with is that matches will just feel too repetitive. So this kind of keeps them feeling a little bit fresher. But
honestly, the play should have been to equip the randomized perk challenges and just not heal people or not kick the generators or pallets.
Oh yeah, so you can just like
keep randomizing.
So you never finish the challenge. Yeah. Yeah, no, that would I mean that is one way to do it. So if you're now we've warned you, you can try that for yourself and have a built-in in-game randomizer, which is cool. We still have another another chapter to the tome that will release after a week. So you'll have like the full 3 weeks of the event to finish everything, but the second half of the community challenges and the personal track won't be available until a week from I guess today. So when we're recording. But that pretty much covers everything that's in the new, not the chapter, the anniversary update. But any sort of last thoughts, anything that you wanted to add to what we talked about?
No, I'm interested. I especially the fact that they have the randomization on this page. I'm very confident that they'll have another one on the second page. So in a week, when the next page of this event tome opens up, I'm sure that they'll have another randomizer portion. And there's actually a decent chance that I do what I described, where I equip it and then just don't complete it so that I can keep randomizing my perks.
Yeah, I don't think that like them putting like as a last thought for the randomizer, like I don't think if they make it a base functionality in the game that you can just put that on, I don't think that should preclude them from making this like a tome challenge in future tomes, even for the non-event ones, to just be like,
Right.
you need to play with this on, or maybe selecting it automatically checks it on like the way it does in this tome, whatever the case may be, but just forcing people to use that a little bit more, and I think would be like a really easy.
You just in a like similar to when we play Super Smash Brothers Melee, you know, well, I guess Melee doesn't have this, but people that are familiar with fighting games in general or lots of other style of games, instead of selecting a perk, instead of selecting, you know, Lethal Pursuer, it just has an option for random.
Yeah, at the
and
end
then
of
you
all
can
the
choose
perks list. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And then for each of your 4 perks, you can choose I want to randomize 0, 1, 2, 3, or all 4 perks.
Right.
On my offering, choose random, etc. like that. I
Yeah,
think that's the solution.
That would also be nice in allowing you to still, like, if you choose that, like, your default way of playing is just, like, I just want to always do random perks, but now these tome challengers are like, you got to run adrenaline, you got to run sprint burst, or whatever the case may be. You can do that, but then keep the rest of the build randomized, and so you can still check off the tome that you need to without fully, like, compromising the way that you want to play, which would be nice. I think it's like a no-brainer. I hope they go through with it. It seems like they've spent a good amount of effort to just, put those placeholder things in. Like, it's in the game, so why not just take that last little leap after the event to just sort of bake it into core DBD.
If they don't add it to the game by itself, I'm gonna
leave Dragonite out of this.
Yeah, that's all I have.
But yeah, that pretty much covers it. Fun event in the first few hours for the most part. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll see what the next chapter of the tome sort of has in store next week. And
real quick. Killers, don't bring cut coins. It's toxic during an event.
Yeah.
And then don't camp the invitation spawns.
Yeah. And survivors and killers, just these there's so many of the we didn't even mention that the offering name is hype.
It's phenomenal.
Terror Misu, which is amazing. Like it's a great play on words. That like
a play on tiramisu.
Like they've tried to, the names have been like fairly creative. Like they've done the gruesome gâteau and ghastly gâteau, and last year was frightful flan and whatnot. But like Terror Misu is that's a banger. That's really good. So but yeah, everyone bring those. Like it lets you find the invitations easier, and even if you have all the cosmetics, they help you escape and give everyone 107% extra blood points. So they're everywhere. Like if you're using your points, which you're getting a lot of because everyone's playing these offerings, just keep playing.
They fuel other, like the more that you bring, the more that you get on your blood webs. So whether you're playing as survivor or as killer, just load up. And honestly, they're more effective on killer because killers in general score more points than survivors. But this is absolutely one of those cases where high tides raise all ships, or whatever. What's the phrase?
I don't know. I'm not a pirate or whatever. I don't know.
It's some boomer shit, whatever.
All right, but that if you want to, where can they find you, Scrap, in terms of your socials and all that?
Yeah, twitter.com/ScrapBrainSC2. I also stream on Twitch at ScrapBrainSC2. I've been collecting a lot of clips recently.
Biding your time.
If I might get some motivation, I might start posting on my YouTube, maybe some shorts of some clips. I got some pretty juicy ones during this event as well. So we'll see about that. I'll wait to plug that until I'm actually doing stuff with it. But
fair enough.
Yeah, find me on Twitter and on Twitch.
Yeah, so I'm at Twitter, Twitch, and particularly on TikTok. I post pretty much daily, sometimes twice. Just some clips and stuff at Z Subtle on all three of those. So you can find me in all of those places. But Also, drop the subscribe. Appreciate a like if you enjoyed the podcast episode, and we'll be back next week.
Go smash that bell.
Yeah. All of the YouTuber stuff. But until then, enjoy the anniversary event. We'll see you soon.
Wait. Make a Mr. Beast face for the thumbnail.
No. Right.
Thanks everybody. Bye.
Peace.